Beneath the quiet fields of Mississippi lie ancient secrets older than written history. From mysterious earth mounds built by forgotten hands to sacred sites that connect to faraway lands, Mississippi hides some of the most puzzling mysteries in America. Who built these massive monuments? What knowledge did they carry? And why were they suddenly abandoned? Today, let's explore the untold mysteries of Mississippi and uncover stories that might just change how you see America's past. End of // The mystery of Poverty Point. In the northeastern corner of Louisiana, stretching into the cultural heartland of Mississippi, lies one of the most baffling ancient sites in all of North America. It is called Poverty Point. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a series of grassy ridges and mounds scattered across the landscape. But when you step back, when you look at it from above, the picture changes. Suddenly you realize that this is no accident of nature. This is a design. This is a massive planned city, built nearly 3,500 years ago, at a time when most of the world was just beginning to form great civilizations. And yet, here in the Mississippi Valley, a people with no written language, no wheels, and no beasts of burden managed to create one of the largest and most complex earthworks on the continent. That is the mystery of Poverty Point. How did it come to exist? Who built it? And why did it eventually vanish? The site covers nearly 400 acres, making it larger than many ancient cities in Europe at the time. From the air, you can see its design clearly. 6 giant earthen ridges, built in concentric half circles, radiating outward from a central plaza. At the heart of the site stand enormous mounds, including one shaped like a bird in flight, stretching over 600 feet long. The engineering alone is astonishing. Tens of millions of cubic feet of earth had to be moved, shaped, and compacted by hand. Archeologists believe the builders carried basket after basket of soil, slowly constructing these ridges and mounds over decades. And yet, there is no sign of the kind of centralized government or kingship we associate with such massive projects. So how did this get built? Was it the work of a powerful religious order, organizing thousands of people for sacred purposes? Was it the result of a culture that placed such immense importance on ceremony that entire generations labored to create the stage for their rituals? We don't know, but the sheer effort suggests something extraordinary drove these people to build Poverty Point. Artifacts unearthed at the site add even more layers to the mystery. Archaeologists have found thousands of objects, stone tools, clay cooking balls, figurines, and jewelry. But here's the strange part. Many of these items came from hundreds of miles away. Copper from the Great Lakes, soapstone from the Appalachians, and flint from the Midwest have all been discovered here. That means Poverty Point was not just a local settlement. It was part of a vast trade network stretching across most of ancient North America. Imagine people traveling hundreds of miles without horses or carts, carrying goods along rivers and trails, gathering at Poverty Point to exchange, to trade, and perhaps to perform rituals that bound them together. In this way, Poverty Point might have been less a city in the modern sense and more of a ceremonial center, a place where distant communities came together in pilgrimage. But what ceremonies took place here? That remains one of the biggest mysteries. Some scholars believe the site was aligned with astronomical events. The ridges and mounds may have been positioned to track the rising and setting of the sun, or perhaps the stars. This would have made Poverty Point not just a place of trade, but also a sacred calendar, a tool for marking the passage of time, the changing of seasons, and the cycles of life and death. Others argue that the design reflects a cosmic order, a way of recreating the universe on Earth. In many Native American traditions, the circle represents harmony and balance. Could Poverty Point's concentric ridges have symbolized the universe itself, A giant mandala where the community gathered to act out sacred rituals? If so, then this site is not just a city. It is a prayer written in earth. What makes Poverty Point even stranger is its timing. It was built around 1700 BCE, long before the rise of Cahokia or other great mound sites of the Mississippi Valley. At that time, ancient Egypt was constructing its grand temples, and Mesopotamia was thriving with city-states. Yet here, in the river valleys of North America, a culture with no apparent kings or armies built something to rival the wonders of the old world. And then, mysteriously, they disappeared. By 1100 BCE, Poverty Point was abandoned. No battles are recorded, no signs of fire or destruction. The people simply left. Why? Was it climate change? A drought that made the land impossible to sustain? Did disease spread through the community? Or did the rituals lose their meaning, causing people to drift away? We cannot say for certain, and that absence of answers is what makes Poverty Point so haunting. Another puzzling aspect is the purpose of the enormous bird mound, also known as Mound A. From above, it clearly resembles the shape of a bird in flight, with wings outstretched. Was it a symbol of spiritual power? Perhaps representing a messenger between earth and sky. Some archaeologists think it may have been a platform mound, supporting a giant temple or gathering space. Others believe it was symbolic, a representation of mythological creatures, important to the builder's worldview. The bird appears often in Native American traditions as a sacred being, a link between humans and the heavens. If that's true, then Mound A might be one of the largest symbolic monuments in the ancient world. The technology of construction also raises questions. Without the wheel or draft animals, the builders had to rely entirely on human strength. That means millions of baskets of soil, hauled by hand. How did they coordinate such an effort? Was it seasonal, with people gathering during festivals to contribute labor? Was it a communal duty, a shared act of devotion? Or did some unknown form of leadership demand it? Archaeologists lean toward the idea of communal effort. But the truth is, we don't know. What we do know is that Poverty Point shows an extraordinary level of organization, unlike anything else in North America at the time. Artifacts provide further intrigue. Among the most puzzling are small carved figurines, some of which depict humans, others animals. Their purpose is unclear. Were they toys, charms, or ritual objects? Some look deliberately broken, as if they were used in ceremonies and then discarded. There are also enigmatic Poverty Point objects, clay balls baked hard in fire. Archaeologists believe these were used in cooking, heated and then placed into pits to cook food. But some researchers suggest they had ritual functions too, perhaps linked to fertility or offerings. The truth remains hidden in the soil. Poverty Point also forces us to rethink our understanding of ancient America. For a long time, mainstream history dismissed the idea that complex societies existed here before European contact. But sites like this prove otherwise. Poverty Point was a hub of trade, a center of ceremony, and an engineering marvel. Its people had far-reaching connections, advanced knowledge of their environment, and the ability to build on a monumental scale. They may not have written books or built stone temples, but they left behind something just as profound: a city of earth that endures after 3,000 years. Today, visitors can still walk the ridges, climb the mounds, and stand in the plaza where ancient ceremonies once took place. It feels quiet now, but if you listen closely, you can almost imagine the sound of drums, the gathering of thousands, the flickering of firelight on the ridges. The site is a World Heritage Site now, recognized for its global importance. But it still holds secrets that science has not yet unlocked. The greatest mystery of Poverty Point may not be how it was built, but why. Why would a culture with so few resources dedicate so much energy to constructing a site of this scale? Was it purely religious devotion? Was it about trade and power? Or was it something more? Something we cannot yet imagine. As with many ancient mysteries, the absence of answers is part of the allure. Poverty Point reminds us that history is not a straight line. Civilizations rise and fall, leaving behind puzzles that echo through time. Poverty Point is more than just earth and clay. It is a message across millennia, a reminder that great civilizations existed here long before modern history began to take notice. It shows us that mystery lies not just in the pyramids of Egypt or the ruins of the Maya, but right here in the heart of America, where the earth itself holds the memory of forgotten worlds. The mystery of Emerald Mound. Emerald Mound in Mississippi is one of the largest ancient earthworks in the entire United States. Yet most people outside of archaeologists and local historians have never even heard of it. It rises out of the green landscape like a silent monument from a forgotten world. If you were to stumble upon it without knowing what it was, you might think it was just a natural hill, but it isn't. It was built by human hands thousands of years ago, and it has puzzled scientists, historians, and mystery seekers for generations. Who built this massive mound? Why was it constructed? And how could ancient people with no modern technology achieve such a scale of engineering? These are the questions that make Emerald Mound one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Emerald Mound is located in the rolling hills of Adams County, Mississippi, not far from the historic city of Natchez. It was constructed between the years 1250 and 1600 CE by the ancestors of the Natchez people, but the exact purpose and deeper meaning behind it remain unclear. What makes Emerald Mound so remarkable is its sheer size. It covers 8 acres of land and rises nearly 35 feet high, making it the second largest temple mound in the United States, surpassed only by Monk's Mound at Cahokia in Illinois. Imagine ancient people hauling tons of soil basket by basket, piling it carefully, and shaping it into a flat-topped platform that could support temples, ceremonial structures, and perhaps even homes for elites. The scale of labor is staggering. Some estimates suggest it would have taken generations of coordinated effort to build something like Emerald Mound, and yet there are no written records from its creators. The mound itself is the message they left behind, and we are still trying to decode it. Scientists believe Emerald Mound was part of a massive ceremonial complex. Its flat summit held buildings, likely temples or council houses, while smaller secondary mounds were built on top. These smaller mounds may have supported shrines, or they may have been symbolic, representing connections to the spiritual world. The layout suggests not just a practical function, but a cosmological one. Many mound-building cultures in North America align their constructions with celestial movements, especially the sun and stars. Could Emerald Mound have been a kind of calendar, tracking the solstices or equinoxes? Was it a place where ancient priests or astronomers stood to observe the heavens? Or was it something even more mysterious, a sacred link between the earth below and the spirit world above? The truth is that archaeologists are still debating. Excavations have uncovered pottery shards, stone tools, and remains of wooden structures, but not enough to provide a clear story. The lack of burial remains makes Emerald Mound different from many other mounds in Mississippi, which were often used for burials. This mound seems to have been purely ceremonial, a stage for rituals and gatherings. What kind of rituals? That's where the mystery deepens. The Natchez people who lived in the area centuries later had a complex religious system with a great sun chief who was seen as a divine ruler. Some believe Emerald Mound may have been the seat of a powerful religious leader who ruled not just politically, but spiritually. Others suggest it was a gathering place for thousands of people, a site for festivals, dances, or offerings to the gods. What makes the story of Emerald Mound even more fascinating is the question of how it connects to other mound sites across the Mississippi River Valley. There are hundreds of smaller mounds scattered across the South, each built by different groups at different times, but all sharing similar styles and purposes. Some researchers believe these mounds are evidence of a widespread ancient culture, one that stretched across much of North America. Could Emerald Mound have been one of the capitals of this civilization? A hub of power and influence that linked trade routes, spiritual practices, and cultural traditions? If so, then we are looking at something much bigger than just a mound of dirt. We are looking at the remnants of a civilization that science is only beginning to understand. One of the strangest aspects of Emerald Mound is how little is known about the people who built it. Unlike Egypt, where hieroglyphs record the lives of pharaohs, or Mesopotamia, where clay tablets preserve their history, the mound builders left no written language. Their story is silent, told only through earthworks, pottery, and artifacts. This silence has led to endless speculation. Some fringe researchers have even suggested that the mounds were influenced by visitors from other continents, perhaps ancient seafarers from Europe, or even more outlandish theories involving lost civilizations like Atlantis. Mainstream archaeologists reject these claims, but the mystery remains. How did such an advanced culture rise and fall, leaving behind monuments as massive as Emerald Mound, yet no clear written history? Another layer to the mystery lies in the engineering itself. Building a mound of this size required not just labor, but knowledge of soil, water drainage, and structural stability. If the wrong type of earth was used, the mound would have collapsed. If it wasn't packed properly, rains would have washed it away. Yet Emerald Mound has stood for centuries, enduring storms, floods, and erosion. How did the ancient builders know what to do? Did they learn through trial and error? Or did they have a science of earth building that has been lost to time? Some researchers think the mound builders had a deep understanding of their environment, passed down through generations of experimentation. Others believe the scale of coordination points to centralized leadership, a ruling class that could organize thousands of workers. But who were these leaders, and how did they command such loyalty and effort? Today, Emerald Mound stands as a silent witness to that lost world. Tourists can walk to the top and stand where ceremonies once took place, but the energy of the site is hard to describe. Many visitors report a strange feeling, as if the ground itself remembers the rituals. Some even claim to feel a spiritual presence there, though science cannot measure such experiences. What science can say is that Emerald Mound is one of the greatest achievements of pre-Columbian North America, proof that complex societies thrived here long before European contact. The mound also raises uncomfortable questions. Why were so many of these ancient sites abandoned? By the time Europeans arrived in the region, many mounds had already been left behind, their builders gone or absorbed into other cultures. Was it disease, war, or climate change that caused the collapse of this civilization? Or was there another reason, one we still don't understand? This pattern of sudden abandonment repeats across the Americas, from the Anasazi cliff dwellings in the Southwest to Cahokia in Illinois. Emerald Mound may hold part of that larger puzzle, a clue to why entire civilizations rose to greatness and then vanished. In the end, Emerald Mound remains an unsolved riddle. It is massive, ancient, and impressive, yet strangely quiet about its origins. We can measure it, map it, and study it, though we cannot fully explain it. And maybe that is what makes it so powerful. It invites us to wonder, to imagine the lives of the people who once gathered here, to ask questions that history has not yet answered. Every step on its slopes is a step into the unknown, and perhaps that is why it continues to fascinate us today, because in a world where so much has been explained, Emerald Mound still refuses to give up all its secrets. The Pascagoula Alien Abduction. In the stillness of a warm October night in 1973, along the quiet banks of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, two men claimed they encountered something beyond human imagination. Their story would become one of the most famous and debated alien abduction cases in the world. The men were Charles Hickson, a 42-year-old shipyard worker, and his 19-year-old companion, Calvin Parker. That evening, they had planned nothing more extraordinary than a simple fishing trip after work. But what happened to them near the river that night would ignite decades of speculation, controversy, and fear. Their experience is still known as the Pascagoula Abduction, and to this day, it remains a mystery with no clear explanation. Charles and Calvin arrived at the old abandoned shipyard at around 9 p.m. The river was calm, the air still, and aside from the hum of insects, all was silent. They cast their lines into the water, expecting a relaxing few hours. But soon, their peace was broken by a sudden and unearthly sight. Out of the darkness, they saw a glowing object descending. Hovering just above the ground, it emitted a strange blue light. The craft was about 30 to 40 feet across, shaped like an oval, and it made a faint hissing sound as though it were alive. The men froze. Before they had time to react, the craft opened and three beings emerged. The figures were unlike any alien described before. They were humanoid but grotesque, about 5 feet tall, with gray, wrinkled skin that looked rough and robotic. Their heads were shaped like bullets, and instead of eyes, they had slits. Their mouths were mere holes, and their hands ended in crab-like claws. Protrusions like antennas jutted from where their ears should have been. These beings moved with a strange mechanical stiffness, almost as though they were not fully biological. Calvin and Charles were paralyzed with fear. Before they could run, the beings floated toward them. One creature seized Charles, another grabbed Calvin, and the third hovered close as if directing the abduction. Both men felt themselves lifted, effortlessly, as if their bodies weighed nothing at all. They were dragged into the glowing craft. Calvin later recalled his overwhelming terror, saying he fainted almost immediately. Charles, however, remained conscious. Inside, the environment was unlike anything he had ever seen. Bright lights filled the space, and the air vibrated with an otherworldly hum. Charles reported that he was examined by a strange, eye-like device that seemed to scan his entire body. He could not move, but he felt no pain. He described the sensation as though his mind was being read, his memories pulled apart. The beings did not speak, but communicated through a strange, buzzing sound, almost telepathic. After what felt like an eternity, the men were floated back outside, gently deposited onto the riverbank. The craft then rose silently, shot upward, and vanished into the night sky. Shaken and confused, Charles and Calvin sat by the river in stunned silence. Calvin was trembling, barely able to speak. Charles, trying to remain calm, insisted they report the incident. They first considered keeping it a secret, fearing ridicule, but Charles worried that if they did not report it, others might be endangered. At 11 p.m., They drove to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department and told their story. The sheriff and his deputies were skeptical. They suspected the two men were drunk or fabricating the tale. To test their sincerity, they placed the men in a room with a hidden tape recorder. The idea was simple. If the men were lying, their private conversation would reveal inconsistencies. Instead, the tape captured two terrified men. Their voices trembled, and they repeatedly expressed fear of what had happened. Calvin begged Charles to keep quiet, saying no one would believe them. Charles tried to comfort him, but admitted he was equally terrified. This secret recording convinced the deputies that something genuine had occurred. News of the abduction spread quickly. By the next day, local newspapers and television stations were swarming around the sheriff's office. Charles and Calvin suddenly found themselves at the center of a media storm. Reporters questioned them, skeptics mocked them, and UFO investigators rushed to Pascagoula. The men had never sought publicity, and Calvin especially hated the attention. He wanted nothing more than to hide. Charles, however, felt it was his duty to tell the world what he had experienced. Polygraph tests were arranged, and Charles passed, though Calvin was too shaken to participate. Medical examinations found no evidence of intoxication or mental instability. Both men had puncture marks on their arms, as though something had injected or restrained them. Skeptics argued these marks could have been from simple scratches, but neither man had them earlier in the day. Witnesses later came forward, claiming to have seen strange lights in the sky over Pascagoula that same night, giving further credibility to their account. Still, many dismissed the story as fantasy. Skeptics suggested the men hallucinated, perhaps after drinking, though no alcohol was found in their systems. Others proposed they staged the event for fame, though both men avoided the spotlight for years. For Calvin, the trauma was so intense that he left town, struggling with nightmares and anxiety. He rarely spoke of the incident again for decades. Charles, however, remained consistent in his story until his death in 2011, never wavering, never changing details. The Pascagoula abduction stands apart from other UFO cases for several reasons. First, the creatures described were unlike the stereotypical little gray aliens popularized in later decades. These beings were unique, robotic, clawed, and utterly bizarre. Second, the sheriff's secret tape recording captured the raw fear of the witnesses, providing rare, unfiltered evidence. Third, the consistency of Charles and Calvin's testimony over the decades, despite ridicule and personal cost, added weight to their claims. In later years, researchers revisited the case. In 2018, Calvin Parker, after decades of silence, published a book recounting his memories. He revealed that he had remembered more than he had initially shared, including being subjected to further examinations inside the craft. His willingness to speak again reignited interest in the Pascagoula mystery. Soon, other witnesses came forward, claiming they had seen unusual lights or heard strange noises in Pascagoula on that October night in 1973. These testimonies, hidden for decades, seemed to confirm that something extraordinary had taken place. Skeptics, however, still offer alternative explanations. Some argue that stress or exhaustion caused hallucinations. Others suggest the men mistook a military craft or experiment for something alien. But none of these explanations fully account for the being's strange appearance, the physical marks, or the recorded fear of the men. The Pascagoula case remains one of the most compelling alien abduction stories in history. Unlike other cases that rely solely on witness testimony, this one has the sheriff's tape, medical evidence, and multiple witnesses to strange phenomena. It has been studied by UFO researchers around the world and even investigated by mainstream scientists. No definitive answer has ever been found. For Charles Hickson, the encounter was a lifelong burden. He spoke openly, hoping the truth would be known, but he also suffered from skepticism and ridicule. For Calvin Parker, the trauma was deeper. He avoided attention for nearly 40 years, haunted by the experience, until old age gave him the courage to share his full story. His detailed accounts, consistent with what he had said decades earlier, only deepened the mystery. Today, the Pascagoula abduction is remembered as one of the most famous UFO cases in America. Statues, plaques, and even tourism now commemorate the event. The very riverbank where Charles and Calvin once sat in fear is now a site of curiosity and wonder. Yet the core mystery remains unsolved. Were the men truly taken aboard an alien craft? Or were they victims of some unknown psychological or environmental phenomenon? What cannot be denied is their terror. On that October night, something happened that left two men shaken for life. Whether it was alien or earthly, mechanical or supernatural, it was real to them, and their fear was captured forever on tape. The Pascagoula case continues to haunt the imagination, a chilling reminder that some mysteries cannot be easily explained. Nearly 50 years later, the story is still told, debated, and analyzed. Each retelling adds to its legend, and each new piece of evidence draws us deeper into the enigma. Perhaps someday the truth will be revealed. Until then, the Pascagoula abduction remains a dark and enduring chapter in Mississippi's long history of mysteries.